HSC meeting. Okay, sorry, I did interrupt you, but you were
No,
talking
that's okay.
about like HSC, who, like, what we talk to, and then how we're speaking to other people, and there's a difference there in
Yes. So
regards to like, yeah.
HSC energy, especially the five, is more the prominent one because that's okay. So there's a couple things when we're talking about organizations or entities versus individual people. We don't go as much into the unconscious side just because of the way that human design is set up. It's really set up for humans. But we can take the themes. We absolutely can take the themes that we get from the lines and so forth. So let's just say that primarily HSC is going to be feeling like a visionary guide, someone who can, not someone, an organization who can really impact the masses, does very well in corporate settings, right? Like where there's like large groups. It doesn't have to be personal. However, the message that HSC is like, so who HSC is speaking to have the characteristics of line four energy, which is much more personal, which is about networking. So you're focusing on community, you're focusing on network, you're focusing on small tribe. I shouldn't say it doesn't have to be small, but it has to feel personal. It shouldn't be feeling impersonal. So HSC gives off the vibe that doesn't have to be personal. In fact, it's better if it's not personal, truly. But the people that HSC is speaking to in the copy and the language are going to be looking for something that they're looking for community, they're looking for connection, they're looking for network, which absolutely HSC provides. That's what I'm saying. Like already it's set up properly. It's set up in alignment. Like you are marketing a community, and that is exactly what a four is looking for because fours are most influential and most valuable in communities.
It's interesting, like in another project that I'm working on, that there's this idea of like people can set up like an interest group, and then draw people to them around that. And then and that's part of their way of like creating project groups, but it's indirect. So I feel like and there's also another woman in that project who's like uh she's like offered these like Facebook groups for small businesses, so like people who like there's this big network, but then the actual people inside the network are running smaller operations and smaller enterprises. And I feel like that might be like this kind of structure like with HSC where like there's this big overall container, but then inside to fit with that four energy of more like personal engagement, like that it's around that pod idea that we've had, but maybe somehow just using that and fleshing that out a bit more to be like, how do people want to cluster together at different times, like to feel a bit closer than just being in this big open space. But there could be different ways that they want to do that, like according to different aspects of their interests or their plans or whatever it is.
Yeah, and that's why I edited myself. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be small, but it does
Mm.
need to be personal. It does need to have a four needs to be able to go in and work the room. So it could be that it's a large group, right? And they're aware of that and they connect with the large group, but at some point in time they can get into smaller groups and then come back to large group. I mean, there's
Mm.
an infinite ways that you could do it as long as it's clear to them that they'll be able to have that sense of deeper connection. It's not going to be surface and just like, they're
Yeah.
not just a number. They absolutely have and I think HSC has already communicated all of that part perfectly. I think
Yeah.
where
I think
where the dissonance I felt was more on like on the internal part of the team of in HSC more so than what it's
uh,
communicating out.
well,
Um,
I think
but
like we could design something though, like in response to this from what you're saying, like we could think consciously about the app design and about the experience design, like and how to actually serve people on that four level. Does
um,
that make sense?
Hmm.
Okay.
Its strongest archetype is the 33, which is a storyteller as well. It's a different type of storyteller than yours, Christine. But it's in the same line. So the 56 then goes down to the 33. It's that energy of, so the energy of the 33 is like gather all of these stories, just like, from your own lived experience, other people's stories, cool. Then you go retreat into, a quiet space or take some time and digest all of those stories and wisdom. And then you
Hmm.
come out and you share it with the collective, with other people. So there's this sense of like gathering in people and stories and experiences, then kind of sitting it with it for a while, and then
Hmm.
sharing the lessons that have been digested.
I can,
So,
yeah, I can see how that applies to Rob. Like, but I also could see how that could apply if we want to look to future forward. That could apply to how people engage, like inside the group. Like, it would be interesting to try that maybe as as a path.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot to unpack there, but I think the main things that I wanted to get to was just, um, the harmony. You asked about, the five or the one, and I would say that seeing HSC as this like guide and leader in the space that can speak to corporations just as much as it could speak to grassroots organizations. But when when it's speaking or who it's speaking to are people who are seeking community and seeking networking opportunities and, solid relationship building. They're not seeking something where it's just they're going there for data or they're going there for, some abstract thing. They're really going there for relationships and connection. Just keeping that in mind. Now, that isn't even, necessarily the message, because the seven, you know, is I gotta look that stuff up. I don't remember the seven off the top of my head, but it's definitely the energy of the alpha leader. And it is in line one. So it is still going to be more on the technical side. Okay, the only thing that I would say in terms of communication, that I would look at for HSC is it just all of it seems a little bit too much on the technical side. I think it's too much line one energy, even though it is line one in the communication. Um, if it's appealing to or speaking to the four, you need to make it a little bit warmer, a little bit more human, a little less technical.
Hmm.
That's the only thing I would say. Like, have the technical there, it's there backing everything up, but make the language like
Hmm.
a little more conversational, a little bit more relaxed, because the fours are really not about all that technical stuff. Like, it's just not really the vibe of the four. And I think, Christine, if you feel into it, you know this too. Like, you have both. You have the one and the four. So I should really use like a
Hmm.
2-4 who doesn't have the one, because the two, like my daughter, she is really, really, it's a crazy how good this girl is at just like looking at something and being like, yeah, that's too much information, mom. But then other things she's like really into it. And whenever I look at the things she's really into, there's always this engagement factor where she's like engaging with the material. She's like agreeing, disagreeing, she feels pulled in, which is not line one energy at all. Line one energy is it's much more scientific, it's much more data, it's more researched. It's not as it doesn't necessarily need to engage you on that like personal level, but a four would want to be engaged on a personal level.
Hmm. Hmm.
I feel like a four energy though is like aware that other people are also getting what they need too. It's like
Yes,
this is just my
I agree.
sense. Yeah, like it's not just about the person there having their experience. It's like seeing a mutuality and having like a that means that the whole thing is actually working, like when you can see that. Yeah.
Mhm. Yes, I agree. I agree with that. Um, that was my only comment. And maybe you want to, I mean, share it with more people because I'm not either. I'm not a one or a four. So I'm probably not the best for capturing that essence. But that was my, reaction, I guess you could say, to the like, let's say the welcome packet or whatever.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can
I
dig
always say that to people. Like, if you're focusing on the group, you always got to see the individual within the group. Like, the group doesn't work unless all the individuals are like want to actually be there and actually bring everything they have. Hmm.
So, so I guess that's another thing though. The four can't connect to the group until they've joined and then they've come to the meetings, right? So somebody who's coming to see the website or looking at the welcome packet, they haven't yet made that connection to the group. It makes more sense, like if like now, like if I'm when I'm reading that, I can connect it to you, Christine, or to Rob or to Saya, and I can be like, okay, I get why they wrote it this way. Not how I would have written it, but like I get it because I have some connection to you. But if it was my first entry point, I wouldn't have that to relate it back to. So I'm trying to remember
Hmm.
if I can
I feel like
find.
the number one to me, in my way of thinking, creates like a penetration. Like like that idea of the investigator or the researcher. The whole point of that is to like penetrate into like a pathway, basically. It's
Mhm.
like you don't just research by keeping things fuzzy and like not really knowing where you're going. You have to actually really go forth on a pathway. And so I think maybe rather than the researcher aspect, like that pathway aspect might be a helpful way of using that for HSC.
Knowing where you're going.
Yeah, like forging that pathway and then being like, hey, everyone come with us type thing. That type of energy.
Okay, coming back to the theme of refinement and creating a beautiful space that's healing. Um,
Hmm.
You know we're recording, right, Deborah? Are you okay with viewers seeing your
no, there's nothing really private here, but I guess
that
I was
doesn't
just looking
bother
at
me, but yeah, just
I was just looking at this piece because yeah, here it is. Uh there was something that he wrote that made me want to go find
hmm.
HSC. Yeah, it must have been this part here because he talked about commitment pooling.
Samara Trust. Kathleen. Why don't I know Kathleen? Interesting.
That's weird. I remember seeing, yes. But then when I went over here, this is no longer here now. Hold on. I think it was this one.
Oh, well, I can pull all this up. In fact,
So,
I might have made the pages live for you. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, this is still live on Notion.
so, so this is like the right level of detail to me. Like when you come in, it's
Hmm.
like enough that you're like, "Oh, okay, these people know what they're talking about. I know the one is there. They studied it. Like I could feel that, but it wasn't overwhelming. It was really like short and brief.
Hmm.
And then
Interesting.
there was just like two links. But I feel like the stuff I've seen like later on now has been a little overwhelming. Um, yeah, I felt like this was a really good level of detail. Because I remember reading through this and being like, this is cool. Like I was just like, yeah, this is super cool. I'm like totally in. And it was something that I could digest
Hmm.
fairly easily. It wasn't overwhelming. Again, you want to ask more people outside of us here in this space because obviously, each of, we're just a very small piece of the bigger puzzle. But I would just, that's the only comment that I have about how HSC content is going out. Because I think you're marketing the right thing in the right way. The only thing I would say is just the written documents have been a little bit hard to digest. But again, I I'm coming at it from one angle. You're going to need other people's angles, and for now it's fine. But I would say that that might be the one thing to think about when you're thinking about speaking to the line four, because they really are just looking at the community part of it. They're looking at how can I connect. And yes, I mean, obviously they don't want it to just be like no substance and just connection, but it shouldn't be so much substance that they're like having a hard time digesting it. Whereas one would love, I mean, the more detailed, the better for a one, So I get that. I understand that because every time I have line ones and I do stuff for them, I'm like, I'm gonna have to get out the lessons. I'm gonna have to get out all the extra books and stuff because they're not gonna be at ease until they have, all the volumes stacked up to know that they can go do their research and see where I got every sentence I said from. And I'm okay with that. I've gotten used to that because that's the one's way of thinking. I get it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, we are on very different wavelengths, you and I. Like that's pretty obvious. So the question is like, how do we find the harmony there?
Who you are you talking to me?
Yeah.
We're on different wavelengths? Okay.
Yeah, I think we're on very different wavelengths.
Okay.
Like if you want to use like the example of like the 1-4 and the 3-5, like I think there's a very different,
Yeah, very
totally
dissonant.
different.
hmm
Yeah. Um, how do you think yours like relates to HSC, like your personal pattern?
Mm, I'm so there's something really interesting I learned about my life theme. I literally will get pulled or called to spaces where there's a need for something to be expressed. Usually it's an emotional need. And I literally will go places and be like, no one else is going to talk about this gigantic hairy elephant in the room. Okay, I guess I'm going to do it. And I don't like this has been my whole life has been like that. But I didn't know that that's actually my life theme until recently. I'm like, "Oh." So I get attracted to spaces where something needs to be communicated and isn't being communicated well or is not being said at all. And then I say it. And then it's up to me. Sometimes I stay in the room, often I leave because as a 3-5, like I'm not built for really close, tons of really close relationships. I tend to be a person who's in the five is so the five is projected upon as a hero. So you come in a time of crisis, you do your thing, and then you leave. The longer you hang around, the less effective you are as a five. So I feel like I was attracted by HSC to bring to voice things that needed to be brought to voice. That's all I know.
Okay.
So I may not be a permanent fixture, and I might, I don't know. But I just know that that's been a very consistent theme. When I went to Vivero, it was the same theme. It was like, oh, so this needs to be said, but nobody's saying it. Everyone wants someone to say it. So I'll say it.
Hmm.
you know, and it's been hard for me because a lot of times I don't say things because I too had to overcome my own fears around saying the thing that I'm pretty sure was going to piss some people off. Like I understood that, but I was like, I keep ending up in these situations where nothing is being said and it needs to be said. But now I know that that's because that's how my energy works.
Mhm. I
Hmm.
can see that would be helpful over time, like as HSC grows and there's more people.
Any other questions about your design, Christine, or you want to just go through it on your own?
Well, I have read it. And I guess like how do you see this working for HSC then, like with the like the storyteller thing? Like what's the difference between the HSC storyteller and my storyteller?
Just the 56 is more maybe a little bit more on the mental expression, whereas the 33 is more on the heart expression. So it's like they're both expressing stories, but just from a different angle. That's all.
Hmm. Okay.
So it's the same kind of story. So you're sharing experiences, whether it's yours or someone else's, doesn't matter, but you're sharing those experiences to try to like um share whatever wisdom has come, you've distilled
Hmm.
from those stories and those experiences.
Yeah, I can see how that relates to like another like personal project that I've got going in my thing. But yeah, I wonder how it could work for HSC. Like
I mean, it's
what
just
what can we do with
as
all these stories that we get from people?
well, I mean, I think it's uh, if you lead with storytelling, it'll be pretty powerful. You can also lead with your own. So Rob's is what's yours? Is yours 48? No, or the 38? I don't remember. 39. 39. You're the provocateur. It's your strongest one. So you can tell, you can come in and you can provoke, or you could come in and tell a story, from the heart of HSC. Like you could do both, right? You can work. So like I was noticing this recently. I was like, I'm a 3-5, and when I post, like no one engages. What's that? But then if I like go and I message them, like I get all kinds of responses. I'm like, that's weird because it should be the opposite. From my profile, I should be
Hmm.
able to post and people come to the post and be like, oh, the leader, the thought leader has spoken. Okay, what is it? Like that's the energy of the 5. But what I
Hmm.
realize is that when I'm doing my work, I actually get more. So if I share something personal, just a Deborah story, that happens in the posts. But
Yeah.
if I'm doing work that's related to like Global Village campus, I will respond. Oh, my company, Global Village campus is a 4-6, which is a network. I'm working with the company. I'm not working by myself and in isolation as Deborah. I'm working as a spokesperson for Global Village Campus. So when I'm working as a spokesperson for Global Village Campus, apparently the networking energy is stronger than my 3-5 energy. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
What I
it's
just
really
said.
it can get really subtle like that. Oh, is she frozen for you,
And
Rob?
I'm not
A
saying
little
that this
bit.
is how it'll work for everyone. I'm just saying I noticed this myself for my own. Can you hear me? Do I have to go and come back?
I can hear you now. You were breaking up a little bit, not like
Oh,
terribly, but a little bit.
yeah, because you guys weren't frozen for me, but apparently I was frozen for you.
A little bit.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We,
What,
I think
so
we got the
what did you?
message. You weren't like, you never really froze, but you were like breaking up a little bit.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. That's great. It's all fascinating. I really am appreciating it. And it's great to be like thinking, like I think that's the idea, right? Like taking in this information and processing it and hearing it, right? And then thinking about it in relation to, right, to myself, to the group, to the organization. Yeah. And it's just, yeah, I think it's really valuable, from my perspective. So it isn't to like take it and then put myself in a box, or put HSC in a box. It's, that's, I don't think that's the spirit, that I want to receive it in, or that's most beneficial. Yeah, but it's really just to be like, oh, okay, where are we? Yeah, where are we seeing this already? Where are we doing this? Where is there, right, harmony or dissonance because, of the different energies? How can we, right, accentuate, what we do naturally, all of that. Hmm. And so what was just to to name because I mean I hope you stick around, Deborah. But of course, I know that right we just want you to be where where you're in most alignment. So but in this case, it's it seems like among other things, possibly had you came in to say something, right? To name something. And now I think that I'm receiving that like what I was hearing, if that was the case here, which seems like there was at least some of that, it was just that like right, the alignment, like that there was some discordance within the alignment of just like how how all the pieces were working together, and how everything was, cohering the people and the organization. Is that
Yes.
cool? All right. I just wanted to check because if you're here to say it, have a message, for us, then I want to make sure yeah, then I'm receiving it at the very least, hopefully more. Hmm. Yeah.
It is interesting because, like, if I'm thinking about storytelling and then community, all of a sudden those two things start mixing together in different ways and looking at like what to do with that as like member experience could be very interesting.
Also, remembering the theme, I think it's really important to remember the theme of HSC is to create this refined, beautiful space that creates healing and harmony for the people who come in.
Hmm.
I think that's a very distinct, type of theme. It's not a lot of the themes that we have in human design are about like doing something, but this is more about like just like creating a space for people to be in that feels harmonious and healing. It's less about going out and doing something. Like my company's life theme is the Mayas. It's about exposing the illusion that we're in. My life theme is about, about explanation. It's about bringing big ideas complex and making them simple and practical so people can use them and shifting the way they see themselves in the world around them. But this particular life theme for HSC is around refinement. It's around creating these really refined and curated spaces, which I believe would probably be just as much energetic as it is visual. Um, that people can come and experience this like almost like this healing energy, almost like this um, haven, so to speak, where they can come in and it's not all the chaos of social media and all the things that can just kind of come and land and be able to, find this like refined version of themselves or refined version of what they're here to express in the world. That's the vibe I get from that life theme. And so that also
Hmm.
I think is really important because I kid you not, I changed my company name and I kind of reset it in 2021. Everything changed. The type of content that I put out changed. The way, like I just told you about, like getting responses from people changed because my
Hmm.
first iteration of my company was a 3.5 MG with an emotional authority, and it was very different from my second iteration of my company, which was a 4.6 splenic projector. Oh, like couldn't be more different. Couldn't be more different. And it was even the themes, because the theme of my first company was Eden. It was about peace. It was about how to make more peace. And I was offering relationship turnaround stuff. Then the second iteration was about exposing the illusion. And then I moved into leadership development. It was very interesting how that whole thing happened, and I didn't realize it as much at the time, but when I started looking back retrospectively, I'm like, that's true. Everything changed. And the stuff that used to work with the first company did not work with the second company. I had to do it very differently with the second. It's not the second company. It's the second version of the same company. It's the same LLC, but I changed the name and I changed the focus and everything changed.
Hmm.
Hmm. Very cool. Hmm.
So I feel like this is a good place to complete. I'm gonna run over to my co-working appointment that I always have at this time.
Cool.
Um, if everything that I shared with you feels like irrelevant, you can toss it. It just felt it feels I feel complete now that I've communicated it because it was just wanting to be communicated. It was wanting to come out. So I'm glad that it did. And if nothing else, at least if someone says, "Hey, do you know your human design?" You'd be like, "Yeah, I know what that is. I'm a da 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 da." Yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that something there was useful, but if it wasn't, that's okay. I feel complete. I feel fulfilled that I was able to share that with you all.
Hmm. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. It feels great. I mean, I've already got like a ton out of it. Absolutely. I mean, it's just I love working in frameworks like this, you know. I guess maybe that's the one part of part of me, you know, but like bringing in it's like a research project on myself, you know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so these things, you know, can really be helpful. Yeah, so thank you. And with HSC as well, and just yeah, 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 all of that. I appreciate it. It's a
Thank
big
you.
contribution.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you
So
deserve some tokens for for
oh,
tokens.
yeah, I'll take tokens. Um, so I will see you all tomorrow. I'm gonna hop off and have a great evening, rest of your day.
All right, cool. Thanks,
Okay,
Deborah.
cheers.
Thank
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Yeah. Wow, that was a lot.
Hmm. What did you think? Like, how do you think it would be useful in your eyes?
This is great.
How-
Yeah, it's a good question. Let me take a quick bathroom break here. I'll record just to answer that question. Yeah, I think in some ways, you know, it'll be helpful, you know, as we go along, right? So I can like, you know, especially for, you know, for HSC, right? To like process, oh, okay, process some of the things that she's saying. But also even in, you know, in the immediate sense, you know, a lot of the things she was talking about today as far as like, okay, who the message is for, you know, as opposed to like how we, you know, like what we're doing. Yeah, just to be thinking about, it's also interesting to be thinking about like the organization and separating that, you know, from like the humans that are in it. Um, I think, yeah, is an interesting framework, you know, and sort of give, you know, having it have its own, right, which is true. Like the organization, you know, to me, optimally will have its own kind of like beingness. Um, you know, that's separate from any, you know, like one person. Um, Yeah, and then it's cool just, you know,
Hmm.
learning about it as far as like from, you know, for myself and seeing where, you know, where that helps and in addition the, you know, where like where it can work with other, you know, how I'm working with other people, right? Like there was something I didn't really like this was this kind of builder, what kind of builder framework wasn't one that I had really encountered before so much, but there was something like, you know, for example, you know, with us, I thought this was really interesting. Like I'm this type called like the express builder, right? Which is like I just, you know, I sort of like, you know, try things out and get things done and put, okay, we're gonna do this and blah blah blah. Let's do it quickly and you know, see what happens, right? And then yours is something called the classic builder, right? Which is to get the job done through a step-by-step process. Um, and so, you know, not even to like put that on me or put that on you, but to see like that, oh, people might be built, you know, have tendencies to build in certain ways. Um, yeah, it feels really helpful because yeah, you know, and I don't know that I'm just one of them, but to to also just be conscious of like, okay, how, how are we building this thing, and what is the, the plan for, the whole, or this piece or this project. Yeah, so that's kind of what comes to mind.
Hmm.
Yeah. What about you? What seemed helpful? If
Um,
if there was something.
yeah, I'm just thinking like, yeah, I think as a 4-1, and I guess as a 3-1, like that thread of that one that Basilica and Mescal both had, which is interesting. Um, but to me, the one, like, it's obviously part of like the ideas that I've had around like the member experience spreadsheet and like sort of like going really deep on that trajectory, which I think is fine, like, because I like that. And I'm glad that it resonates with the HSC 5 one because I think that there is a lot of capacity there to explore that, like, and go deep with that. Um, and I, yeah, like I wonder how we can tweak the offering, I guess, to if you wanted to fit with some of these things that Deborah has said, like say around having this 5-1 profile and then but offering it in a 4, like to people to have a 4 experience. Um, yeah, like that part, I think there is a way where you can keep a lot of the one stuff quite in the background, or there's a way where you can invite more people in to like do that more actively. And I think it might streamline it a bit better if it is more in the background, at least to a high degree, and then give people like the choice to go deeper into it, like doing it consciously if they want to.
Hmm. Hmm.
Whereas, like, we can just use that information like how we want to like try to build the group, and give it to people in a way that's like it's almost like taking everything we've got and then if she's saying like convey it in a 4 way, it's like the ultimate challenge of user design because to get it from all that to something that just people want to use like in a very like relaxed, easeful manner is challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that makes a
Hmm.
lot of sense. Yeah, and I think it's
Yeah.
true, right? I can see how that's right for both of us, right? That how that's like one of those challenges,
Hmm.
to work with, because I think that
Yeah.
we're right. Like we both have that one. I mean, I see that, right? We both like do this kind of like deep research and, and are able to like present that. But then,
Yeah.
right? How do we, tailor that down, right? To speak, speak in a more, yeah, kind of relaxed and personal way, but not lose it.
Hmm. And also, like, I think maybe the key might be that if we combine the one with that 5 energy, which is like that inspirational, visionary, like excited future, like sounds like that's what she's saying it is.
Yeah.
Like, so basically the one is sort of just the fuel for that in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
think that's
then,
really,
yeah.
I think when I'm my writing it seems like it's really effective and people are responding. Yeah, I think it's exactly that. It's speaking
Hmm.
to the person, the personal, and like that inspiration, and then letting the research sort of like, be there to back, to back it up, but
Yeah,
not
like
like
as if, yeah.
lead,
Yeah.
not lead it, not just like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That makes sense. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. Um, yeah, that feels true to me, and I think as we like we've sort of like had people look over the info packet, not that many, but at least like some, right? And people been in the writing, and there's something where I get that sense, and even I came back to it today after a little bit, read through it, and the the most trimmed one. I think it's pretty trimmed up, but it's like even still, there might be too much like technical stuff. And
Hmm.
like when I was talking with with people, like I wrote a little bit on it, on it today, right? I read through the info packet and then I was like, what people were asking for was, I felt like was more like, well, what do I do? Like, what do I do when I get there? What is this? I don't know. They're just, sort of a little more even
Hmm.
like practical kind of stuff. Um,
Yeah. What I feel is that like the one, like there would not be this path for us even to be thinking about if the one wasn't there. Like the one has like forged this way into this unknown space and and attracted all these things. And so now there is a path to even like haggle about and niggle about and fix. Like before there was no path. So I think that it has like a useful aspect in that way. Um, and so like in some ways, like maybe some of this writing, like for the info packet and that has still been just trying to literally forge the way, the pathway.
mm,
Um, and then adapting that into like that more like immediacy of experience and like connection is that other step, which happens after that. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Because they don't like, there has to be there's that way where like the one is our authority. It feels
Hmm.
so true for me, right? Like I can't, like if I'll write these emails and it's just like, sometimes they take 2 days, right? Because I just can't like write something, as and feel like I can put it out there unless I actually know like and understand what I'm talking about, right? So I have to do 2 days of like research, to be like, oh, okay, now I actually understand what I'm talking about, rather than just like throwing,
Yeah.
sort of shit out there.
Hmm.
But I
Right.
understand, right? Like, so that's for saying, like it's necessary because it gives us our authority.
Hmm.
And I'm sure people can feel that, right? And people want, need that. But then it's not what they're, it just has to be there, It doesn't necessarily, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the star.
It's not the actual thing that they're gonna do. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
Like
not
when they're
it's
there.
not actually the purpose isn't, it's not the purpose either, right? Because it's true. So I think it doesn't feel like hard, to shift it because it really isn't the purpose. Like we're not, HSC is not a research like facility. We're not here to like, there's places where it's just like we're here to do research and present it to the
All
world,
right. Yeah.
That's not
Hmm.
us. Like the research is
Yeah.
really just to serve like the purpose, which is, for like the community to be able to achieve its goals, and the people to be able to come in. It is like a user story, right? Like, right, which is
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, we always, right, like that's what I think we've been, doing. I mean, I think this stuff is helpful, right? To even to tailor the user story, but I think that is what we're doing. We're trying to do is more and more, sort of trim down to like what is the user's perspective, right? So then what do they need in front of
Hmm.
them?
Yeah. Yeah. And so maybe your like line three way of doing that is to like, hey, let's just get people in and then get their feedback. Like, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think so, right? It's like I know, well, that actually feels like a classic me, right? Which is like that's what I do, right? Like I'll go into like my mad scientist lair, and I'll go, like which I perceive as like like the underground lair in the cave that's, sort of hollowed out. I'll go down there, for a month or 2 months, and sort of like research and cook
Hmm.
up whatever, and then I'll come back out and I'll be like, all right, here we go, people. Let's,
Yeah, play with this.
play with it. Here's the potion. Drink it up, see what happens.
Yeah. And I think I probably come along with the member experience piece because I'm like the 1-4, not the 1-3. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. We got potions, but like, is it a theme party? Like things like that. are we wearing costumes? Like, who's doing the babysitting for the kids that can't come?
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Who's it? Yeah, yeah, yes. A theme party. Where's it like, yeah, how are we, yeah, where are we doing? Right. And I'm just walking around town being like, hey,
I
try
got
this
this
potion.
potion.
Right. And getting
Yeah.
enough people to do it, right? Because I probably like can sell it, well enough. But it's like, yeah, you're like, well, maybe this might be more, it might be more like effective and in the long term, right? If we used to be like, oh,
Hmm.
hey, okay, well, let's just like, get the theme going, the party and the babysitters and get everybody, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean yeah, so that's really to me it does feel really, helpful and especially, right, especially this kind of thing right here that we're talking about right now, it feels helpful, right? For, and specifically,
hmm.
okay, for how we're working together and then how can we, how,
Yeah.
right, how do we right, utilize, like our capacities, to the fullest for, in service to this like larger organization community.
Yeah. Because there's some ways that I feel like I want to take the one as far as possible because that's just me. But also, I think it could work in a setting. And I think that what does that look like to take that far? Like, I'm happy to entertain your experimental aspect, like in service of the one, of the one vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think that that's interesting to me. And I think that it actually, that's like the feeling I've had for a long time is that in order to even play like in these biggest circles, like with some of the people who, like some of the big companies, the established companies or like the ones that already have deep research, like we do need to have our own one pathway, like
Hmm.
of, because it's more than research, it is creative at the same time, I think. I think it's like, yeah, that pathway generation. And so if
Hmm.
we're creating a pathway that is specific to our values and to like the values that we're seeing here of the community, then I think that that's in service of that. So yeah, I'm fully behind that part of it and want to do more of that. Um, and then when it comes to like the tasks and divvying up like the tasks and things like that, I wonder if there's more information that could be useful for us to do, like to use towards that. Um, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, right. Having the one, right, still be in service of the one. I think that's, I think that's true. Like, I think that's, because right, like if I'm a one and have that naturally, and you do, and then HSC does, right? Like, it feels like there's always going to be a foundational piece because,
Yeah.
right? Like, as mad as I want to experiment, like, that's the thing. Like, I won't, like,
Hmm.
I, I won't feel sort of okay going too far unless it's, based on enough, like sound,
Hmm.
research or sound reasoning, or sound,
Yeah.
like a sound foundation. Hmm.
I think that's a good point because yeah, it is research, but it almost is reasoning. Like I get what you're saying with that. It's like stepping it out and making sure things are logical and are like aligned on that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actually feels more like it to me. It feels like the research, right? The research is in service of that. The research is in service of like,
Hmm.
hey, this is a sound, like, right? Because if I'm going out and like t telling the world, if I'm like, hey, drink this potion, I only want to do it if I feel like, oh yeah, no, actually, there's a reason for this. Like there's
Right.
like it's a risk, but you should try. Like as best as I can figure out, like this potion is gonna be good. It's worth trying. It's
Yeah.
worth the trying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Right, which is that pathway generation. Yeah, that's a good
Mm.
term to 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 think about it, right? Because that's also, yeah, it's like that, right? It's like saying, okay, well, where are we, where are we going? And
Yeah.
we want to base that, on
Yeah.
the reasoning and the research, what we know. Hmm.
Yeah.
And it always feels like there's a back, I mean, maybe this is just like, right, like this feels true for me, right? Like there's always, I feel like there's always this back and forth, there's a lot of times when I create, there's these waves, of going and like, okay, experimenting and trying things out and then being like, okay, now we've got understand that now better, let's go back and figure out, what the next, path forward is and what else we need to learn. And, you know, it doesn't have to happen like that, like it does. I think that's right. If left to my own devices, is probably how it happen, how it works.
Mm. Is there a way that you could imagine using that a bit more effectively in this context? Like if you had a dream desire around that?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that the way, sorry, it's just the dogs. Okay. Just one of them. Okay.
Actually, I might just turn my air conditioning off. I really need to. It's getting
Oh,
super cold.
oh yeah, sure. Oh yeah, no worries. Air conditioning. That's funny. Hey, girl. I was like, whoa, I didn't understand what you were saying first. I'm like, air conditioning. What? Oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that stuff. Um,
Yeah.
uh,
Um,
yeah,
hmm.
yeah, it's a good question because, right, like in my natural sort of pathways, right, I would say, and I think I mentioned this as a process, but like, I'd say, okay, let's, you know, do whatever we need to, sort of like get the alphas in and get people in and activate them, get experimenting, and
Yeah.
like get the conditions so that way at least people can like sort of, I guess, like come to the party, right? And start and being there and then say like, okay, you know, now that like people are here, right? And we know that like, okay, people can come in, right? And there's people that can be able to serve drinks and got that set up. And then we can sort of like now let's
Hmm.
step back and say, okay, what do we need to learn now, to move forward to the next spot?
Yeah, because Deborah keeps pushing on about that like refinement, like having a beautiful haven.
Yeah.
And I think maybe, yeah, like when she kept iterating that, I was like, okay, maybe there is something there that we haven't fully taken on yet. And I think it might be something that would just slightly soften your experimental view, which I think is perfect, like, especially as we have these phases of alpha, like true alpha, beta, and whatever. Like, that is an experiment. Like, you get to run that. But then how to, like, even if it might just be a messaging, like what you're saying, like, oh, you're coming in to experiment, but we're refining our process. We're creating this space and just put that up as like a vision for people to be like, that's what we're working towards. And
Mm,
then that just would be clear for those alpha members or whoever is in these cohorts. Yeah.
yeah. I'm just making a note of that. Yeah, I think that's good. Uh, yeah, I think, okay, sorry. All right, go. Go, go, go. Little beasts. Yeah, right. To name, but also to be, right? Like, because I think we are doing that, but to sort of center that a little more, right? Like we're,
Yeah, make that like the goal. Yeah.
yeah, so that we are like refining our process, that it isn't just like, you know, doing a bunch of
Hmm.
experiments, and then, right? But it's like experimenting so that way we can continue to refine the process.
Well, I think it's also about like this is something that I don't think either you and I have really hit on, which is it's not just about refining the process. Like that might be how you experience it. It's actually about refining the vision, like which might be more aligned to that five thing that Deborah is
Mm.
also talking about of like the vision of a community economy and like how that can work in a beautiful way. Like that is that kind of thing. People would be willing to do the work if they see that and be like, yeah, that's my
Mm.
vision too.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that was a huge piece that came in, especially like last week. The other thing was like I hadn't thought about it, refining the process, but like refining the space.
Mm.
That might be another
Mm.
piece.
Yeah, it's a bit different than just refining like your own process, which is fair enough that you see it that way. Like it's actually refining this like third space or like this entity space that
Yeah.
is is there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
Hmm.
think that's there. That's helpful. That's a helpful sort of word, for me, right? Because I'm always thinking about process and systems and how it works and operates, right? But there's like this space. It's not like that's foreign to me, to be like thinking about, oh, how is
Hmm.
this? Yeah, how's the space, right? And how we want, it's like
Hmm.
even the member, like want it to be beautiful. I think that's true. But yeah, sometimes it's not front and center for me. But I think that's a big
Hmm.
piece, and that's something that I've been really, well, like I said in the email that went out yesterday, and like pondering, right, that shared vision,
Yeah.
because it's like, yeah, but that to me is like very, I don't know that I had my finger on it, was working, but that to me is very fascinating because that is like,
Hello.
I think that's, I think that's been sort of, at least for me, the intention of the design, is to be like, because we're all coming in, you know, all
Hmm.
these meetings, right? Especially, for the first whatever couple year and a half, all it was, it's just people coming in and being like, "Oh yeah, this is the vision. Oh yeah, it's this. Oh yeah, it's that. Oh
Hmm.
yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, you said it well. You said it well." But
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we're all like that's from day one, right? That's what I was saying. I'm like, it's not like my vision. I just it's just something that's
Hmm.
coming through me, coming through us. So then, right, I'm working to like make started to build like the initial,
Yeah.
right, the platform, so that way the vision can, to manifest the vision, right? But
Hmm.
that's, yeah, I think
I
that's part of it. That's also part, like, now, I think maybe that's why it seems intriguing, or this part seems relevant. Why it's coming in is very relevant to me now, because it's like, oh, okay, how do I, how does now how do we more, like facilitate manifesting the group vision, from here.
Yeah, like I like to envision. Have you seen that video of like instead of the solar system being like the sun with all the planets spinning around it, there's that video of like the sun actually moving at like an insane pace through the galaxy with all the planets spiraling around it.
Ah,
Have you seen that?
no,
Oh,
no,
I'll
no.
have to share it with you.
Yeah,
I'll find it
yeah.
right now because like why not?
Why? Yeah, why
Um,
not? It's
but basically what I'm thinking is like the vision is like the sun on this trajectory and all the other moving pieces are like around it. Um,
ah,
and so like the vision is like never just gonna be like just a target that you just hit. It's like we're just always gonna be moving with it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Cool.
Some weird background noise.
Well, but in mine or is yours?
Oh, you didn't hear that? Okay.
Oh, no.
It was like some weird monks chanting or something.
Oh, no, I didn't hear it. Hmm. But yeah, I like that. That the vision, right, isn't it's so true. The vision, you have to have the vision, but it's right, it's not actually like the target that you'd like hit.
Hmm.
Let's see. All right, cool. Is it long or is it just, oh, it's three
Oh
minutes
no,
and
you
20
can
seconds.
just move like the cursor like about 20 seconds in or something, you'll just see the visual
Okay,
and you'll
cool.
see what it is.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I might as well share it, just for our audience, for anyone who might actually be working.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, I
somewhere
see.
around.
So this is like,
That's the old model.
yeah, this is like
Like
our
where
classic conception, what they're saying, but no, actually.
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
the sun is on this like massive trajectory through space as well.
that's a trip. I
And
do
it's
not even
pulling
think
all
about that. But
yeah,
essentially like the sun, but is
yeah.
that true? The sun is like moving through space?
Yeah,
I mean,
allegedly, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Like, because all inside the galaxy, there's all these suns that are all moving.
I mean, it makes sense. I know nothing is like can be is like static, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting to think about that.
I love this. Yeah. It did something to my brain as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a trip. And to see how the different ones are spinning at their different, you
Yeah.
know, waves of wavelengths based on the
And gravity
speed.
is keeping it all together. Like the only thing that is keeping it together is like different kinds of gravity.
Yeah. And there's Pluto. I don't know. Is even Pluto even a planet anymore? I'm not, I forget.
Right. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'm gonna, yeah, I'm sure I'll watch it again when it gets to like midnight, my brain can't do anything. I'm gonna turn that on. It'd be good to watch right before I go to sleep.
Yeah. Harmony.
Yeah,
Watch.
yeah. In harmony with the cosmos. Um,
Hmm.
hmm. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, that's good stuff. I don't know. Any other thoughts on all that?
Um, well, in some ways, like if you want to go real deep with it, it could be like, yeah, like I was saying like the vision is like the sun, that is constantly moving. But also there is a connection with that one energy as well, like in terms of like how to make sense of like the path. But yeah.
Hmm.
Feels like that connection there is just together. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can
Hmm.
go there. Because it's true. Well, I mean, if we're talking about, right, holistic systems, I think that is the idea, right? Because we have our
Yeah.
vision, we have us people, sort
Hmm.
of co-creating it, and this vision is that target, right? But we're also saying, oh, well, it's not just HSC, like, in our bubble doing our vision, right? It's like where it's
Hmm.
connected with everything else.
Yeah. And I think that like that maybe that four energy helps to make it personal. Um, like it's like how do you get that big vision and how do people then see themselves inside that vision in a productive and practical way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? How do people, see themselves in that vision in a productive and practical way? Yeah. And maybe that's part of what we're helping provide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like maybe that's part of like creating these steps for people to understand how to dig into the space. It's like they know that they're bringing all their gifts and their skills and experience and their desires and goals. But then when they get there, like how do we merge that with the vision and with this idea of like a dedicated space and like this refined process, but how to make it just really smooth, like how to so it's obvious that like I'm bringing all this to the table and I'm being appreciated for that. And I'm already like, you sort of like step into the world. Like you don't step into the world at like Disney World and be like, oh, like it's only half built and there's like, no one really knows what's going on. Like, no, the world is like right there. You like get in there right away.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. I dig that. Yeah, for sure. Right. And if you think about, some of the people, right, that have been attracted already, right? Like, two of these, sort of more, right, original members like a Newman and Zoe who aren't
Yeah.
around now, right?
Hmm.
I,
Yeah.
I'm still in touch with Zoe and right, but their lives are, we know where maybe they're like Pluto, they're just they're like coming around. They have a big rotation before they get back around,
Like a comet. Yeah. Yeah.
like Pluto around the comet, right? And you and I are like Mercury and and Venus.
We're
We're
like,
like,
yeah, yeah, up in there. Uh,
it's good. It's good. Yeah. Um, right, but I
yeah.
think that is, like right there are people who coming in, right, who are there's they like are they're interested in the process, and like but like so much of it is like the experience, right? And like and Zoe
Mm,
did that the new member survey, right? There's a few people who have filled that out, right? And Zoe did, and couple, and some of them are right. They're talking
mm,
about like,
yeah,
oh, just like this experience, I want to be and like help and support other people, and and so um,
yeah.
it's always good for me to hear that and keep that in mind. Um, you know,
Well, we know
yeah, I get. It's not like I don't understand. I'm not for that and understand. Like that really is part of it, But there's always some part of me that's just sort of like thinking about
mm.
who cares about that, that like let's just make sure like the value flows, like the value flows have to work, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so everyone does have to play their little role in like that model.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. And like we know that the thing is not built yet, so they can't just step into the world and be like, oh, it's there. So I think, yeah, like in terms of having like that strategy to get there for us, um, I guess maybe there's just a bit of tweaking where like we're just telling people where we're at, like on that journey.
Mm.
Or maybe we even have like a visual roadmap with like not necessarily like dates, but with stages of like where
Yeah,
we're trying to get to, and then people can see that and be like, "Oh, right, I'm coming in here," and then but that's going to be the future.
yeah, that's cool. It's a good idea because that's pretty common, That's
Mm,
for especially like product development, right? To like show the
yeah.
roadmap. right? And even when they
Yeah.
put dates on it, like nobody ever meets those dates, they always get pushed back, years, but it
Yeah,
doesn't
you
matter.
just
But
change them when no one's looking and they're like, oh, was that the date the whole time?
exactly. Yeah, it was like, no, I think that was,
No.
I think that was always it.
But yeah, people get the whole idea behind it. Yeah, as you
Yeah,
say.
they're seeing where it's going. Yeah,
Yeah.
right, which is
And
yeah,
think I think that's okay to do because if we're trying to involve people in the refinement, then that gives them a way to be like involved if well, they at least they know where it's going. And then
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
or what the plan is now. Yeah, for where it's going.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
No,
I
I
would
think it's
like to
yeah, I think it's a great idea.
mhm.
Um, yeah, and I think that that's where we're sort of like coming to, which is, or maybe, got to, which is saying like, um, what do we need to do? Like maybe like, right, we're saying like Disney World and what, right, it's not like gonna all be built, but like, what's the, with
Mm,
this alpha, start, what is like that MVP version of the world, of that world that we're building?
mm,
And I think that's where, I think that's the sort of what we're seeing or the message we're getting, which is like, hey, let's, you know, make sure we have that, just make sure we have that set up. We know, we have it set up. We know what it is, and we,
mm.
and that's in place, right? Right, because it's like if we want to activate, I had a little chat with Yannick, um, at,
Yeah.
with Gaianet, right, and just checked in on the apps, and neither must, like made
Yeah.
too much progress, but we're talking about, that like because we're really thinking about like the interoperability, because we just,
Hmm.
yeah, we love the idea of like, hey, let's, like we're both doing offers and needs, so it's like, great, let's have their offers and needs on our app, vice versa. So we're just sort of like
Mm,
talking about that, but where we left it was really like this idea of like, oh, okay, they're just like, let's each of us kind of activate our groups a little bit, and do like those, start those little experiments, and then sort of keep each other in the loop as what's working well and what's not, and then what,
mhm,
however long it is, in a couple of months or something, come back together and say, okay, now we know that each of our groups likes, likes this, so then this is the information that we want to try and
mm.
share. So I'm, yeah, that's an update, but also mentioning that, because I like that word activate, right? So it's like I think that's that next step, right? Which is like activate the
Mm.
alphas. So
Sounds like a
yeah.
bunch of Tesla robots. Like, I'll activate the alphas.
Activate the alphas, right? And I'm thinking about like a, an act like a war movie or something. The enemy's in range. Activate the alphas.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so what do we need? What's the container, the space that we need in order to be able to like respond, you know, yeah, that was
Hmm.
the word, right? To respond to the alphas when we say, okay, let's activate. Because actually there's a bunch of people who are like ready to be activated.
Hmm. And we're activating them to be full members in that way that we've been viewing members, like doing member experience rather than builders. Is that right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think to my mind, right, that they're members, and I think that the different to my thought is the difference between alpha members and like what members are really going to be, is that like these initial alpha members, I don't know that we're
Hmm.
saying like, hey, you got to start like paying monthly fees right now, or you have to like, I think it's like,
Hmm.
to me, it's less of like the the member agreements, which I think we want to get there, but I think, in some ways
Okay.
we're saying, like we still, there still need to be like, hey, this is what you're doing. Like, we need you to participate. We need feedback, right? Like if you we don't want you to just come in and put your face on a profile and leave. But
Yeah.
but I think like, oh no, let's just say, hey, let's just get people in there who really want to participate, get them participating, and then
Hmm.
in like 3 months, or something, we say, oh, okay, and maybe that's the betas is saying, okay, now it's time to like, you know, everybody who wants to stay become full-fledged members. Um, but to
Yeah.
really answer your question, yeah, but I think the idea is in this trajectory, bring them in as, participating members and not worrying about like, them becoming builders or ops or contributors, until like they're like
Yeah.
having that opportunity ready, I think is also part of our work, but not necessarily starting with that, letting them get their feet wet a little bit.
Yeah. And I agree. And I think like to get to that point is like we've got everything we've got going on there. Like when do you think is the app and that is ready for that? And basically creating like almost like a party atmosphere of like a launch. Like it is going to be more like a launch that it's going to feel that we need something to ignite like this base level of people because it can't be too small and it can't be too raggedy or like just come when you feel like it. It has to be more like, hey, we're having this event on this date. And then this one is like a follow up for people who can't make that time, like really set in stone. So we need to actually do need a date for that. Um, and so that is like a more like a traditional launch. And then we need to decide how many people make that viable. So, and then we need the outreach plan to get them. So whether that's like a little LinkedIn campaign or like, using some of those business cards that you've got in your back pocket still, like let's use some of those things and get like 30 to 50 people, to be in this group. And then we can actually start seeing some action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds
Hmm.
like a good plan to me. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Right, because we're saying like, right, like there were two people I was talking to, right? And they're right, these are people I know well, but they're like, "Oh yeah," and like one of them that guy, right, James, I showed him and he's like, "Oh yeah, I want in," and I was
Hmm.
right, and I was almost like, "Oh, okay, well, just jump, doing that thing that but I'm like, "Okay, no,
Hmm.
it's gonna be better
Hmm.
if you just, like I'll send you material and we'll get you in." So
Yeah.
So I think maybe it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, there is this matter of just like holding off, even on people like that, I
Yeah.
guess, to just like get ready and have a launch. And then, because I think we
Yeah.
know, we probably have a good idea now of like, we'll know we're ready or what we're going to need to be in place.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be a big thing. Like, I think it could be soon. Um, and I don't, I think that not everyone's going to need to see like the mirror boards, the this, the that. Like, they're just going to see what they need to see to actually step into that alpha experience. But we've got all that stuff going in the background so that when we have this alpha group and we want to start doing feature testing or get a feedback, now we've got that mirror board, the app development board, like we've got places to plug these things in, which I
Yeah.
think is practical as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we kind of need that on that back end stuff, at that certain level of readiness as well.
Yeah.
Um,
So my question would be like, is there any other pieces that you think drastically need to be at a certain point to support that launch?
yeah. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I can speak to that. Right, because oh yeah, and the last reason I think to do that is also because there may very well be like builders, or people who come in and like within 2 weeks they're
Mm.
like, "Oh, I want to help, give me, right?" And so
Hmm.
to have that baseline sort of, place for them to plug into if that's, their
Mm.
desire. Um,
Yeah.
I think is a great idea as
Cool.
well because
Yeah, and I think the trick will be like not inviting them right into like the deepest core strategy like questions that we have, but there's like a few rungs of that contributor level as well, just to like just for cohesion, like not to keep people out, but just for like so they don't come in and then feel like, oh shit, this thing is actually not working. This thing is not fully formed. Because on a lot of levels it is. And it's just like those questions that we're always going to be grappling with will always be like at that core strategy level. Like that's never going to go away. And so to invite people to contribute, but in a way that they feel positive and can just step forward with, I think is smart.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think two thumbs up to that, and right,
Yeah.
whatever, some good lessons learned, to see we're not
Yeah.
doing that, yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, it isn't optimal,
Yeah.
right? Let people, yeah. So I think, or it's, actually, I mean, I don't even want to, it's just like, it's that word, like it's is less refined. And so I think what we're saying, like, if
Hmm.
that's really
Yeah.
like the word that speaks to it, I think is like,
Hmm.
bringing that, yeah, that process of contributors and making it more refined. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, oh, yeah, you step in. Oh, great. We have this like, yeah, here we have this like what, project, that has to do with this one role. It's in this one, circle. And sure, we'd love help with that.
Hmm. Yeah, like start there, and if you love it, then there's plenty more to do,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, people
Yeah,
can like move fast, they through the
exactly.
chain, but it's yeah,
Yeah.
but still
And
have
it'll
the
help them to feel like more positive and more like affirmed for like putting in the effort to be there by ticking off those things too. I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And helping them find the
Mm.
level that they're of participation that
Yeah.
that's actually going to be right for them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there is like some significant roles that do need to be filled. So
Yeah.
it just comes to the point of like developing the relationship, like maybe doing it how we said we want it to be, which is moving at that, not the speed of trust, but like just at that relationship level, where like it's actually a real establishment. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's perfect. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think because I did some sort of, tuning in today and I did a whole thing on my
Oh, yeah.
whiteboard, is on the other side of my desk. So um I don't think anything I don't think anything really like that's too new, but
Mm.
yeah, I can sort of share my thoughts, what they might, what they'd be if I was like, because that was like one of the exercises I did today was, there were a couple exercises. One was, I thought this was good. This was something Basilica said, or I put in that in the email, which was like, okay, what is this thing like, just kind of visioning it. Like if it's already here today, what is this thing that we have?
Mhm.
So I did a little like visioning exercise with that, which was cool. But then I also did more, one with like, okay, what is it that we need to like activate the alphas? Um,
Mhm. Yeah.
should we, I mean, I know we're now getting more into like specific ops stuff. Should we like pause the
Mm.
recording or just,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and also like I have to go and pick up my grocery order
Oh, okay.
and some other things, so I can't stay too much longer.
All right. All right. Well, we'll stop
Yeah.
the recording. So thank you if anybody's still watching.